Now, I'm going to start the next session beyond the Fatiha, and the next session actually has to do with Surah Al-Imran. These are ayat number 190 to 195. And before I tell you about these ayat, I want to tell you a little story about these ayat. The Prophet ﷺ used to receive revelation from different kinds of ways, and one of the ways was sometimes the revelation just came to him directly. Like sometimes it came through an angel, and sometimes it came to him directly. Like he wouldn't even notice the angel, he'd just know ayat have come. One time he was sleeping, and he was lying down next to his wife, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. She's the one who tells us this story. He's lying down next to his wife, and all of a sudden, ayat started coming to him. The part of Quran started being revealed to him. So he turned to Aisha radiallahu anha, and he said, if you give me permission, I'd like to go speak to my Lord. Now look at the manners of the Prophet ﷺ. He didn't just get up and go pray. He turned around and asked his wife permission to go. By the way, does a prophet need anyone's permission? A prophet, by definition, a prophet needs nobody's permission, but he's teaching us manners. So she says, of course, go. And then he goes, and he makes wudu, and he starts praying. And when he prayed, he's reciting the Quran a little bit out loud so she can hear also. So he recites the Fatiha, then he starts reciting some ayat she's never heard before. These are new ayat that just came to him. And these are the ayat that we're going to read. And so he recited these ayat, and by the time he got to these 5 or 6 ayat, he went into ruku', and she says, as he was reciting them, he started crying. And he cried so much that his entire beard was soaked. And then, when he finally went into sajda after reciting these ayat, he stayed in sajda. And he kept crying in sajda until she noticed that there was actually a puddle where he was making sajda. And he wouldn't get up from sajda. Until Fajr started. And Fajr started, and he has to go lead the prayer at the masjid, the prophetic masjid. And the companions are waiting, the Sahaba are waiting, because the sun's about to come up, and the Prophet hasn't come out of the house. So Bilal radiallahu anhu came, because Bilal used to give the adhan. So he comes and he says, Ya Rasulullah, it's time for prayer. We're waiting for you. And so Bilal radiallahu anhu, the Prophet was so emotionally moved. He finishes his prayer and he tells Bilal radiallahu anhu, how can you call me away from Allah when Allah has given me these ayat? When Allah has given me these. And even this story, the way we learn this story is also beautiful. This story, the Prophet ﷺ, when he passed away, Sahaba used to miss him. They used to miss him. They used to talk about him, and when you talk about someone who's gone, it moves you emotionally. So they used to come to Aisha radiallahu anha's house, and they used to just say, so can you tell us something amazing about the Prophet? We miss him. They used to go to the mother of the believers, and they used to say, can you tell us something amazing about him? And she used to say, everything about him was amazing. Everything about him was amazing. But I'll tell you one story. And so the way her house was designed, Aisha radiallahu anha's house, that she had a curtain, and the companions would come on one side of the curtain, and they wouldn't see her, and they would say salam to the mother of the believers and say, could you tell us something? And she'd sit on the other side of the curtain, and she'd tell them a story, or she'd tell them something about the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. So she was a great teacher to many, many, many companions. So this is how she told them this story. When they asked, tell us something amazing about him that we didn't know, she told this story. SubhanAllah. So, one of the things that makes me realize is that there are lots and lots and lots of stories of the Prophet ﷺ that we don't know, that we will never know until Jannah. Because, they asked her a lot, and she told us a lot. But as much as we asked her, do we know every story of every day? Of every moment? No. We have books of hadith. They're in the thousands. It's beautiful. It's huge. And still not everything. Actually, there's a lot to do with the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. There are lots of details. There are lots of conversations. There are lots of beautiful moments that we're going to learn about when we sit at Al-Kawthar, at the Hawd, at the river, at that fountain that Allah describes, Inna a'tainaka Al-Kawthar. The Prophet ﷺ has been given a special fountain in Jannah called Al-Kawthar, and he will give his believers special drinks from those, and we're going to sit by him, alayhi salatu wasalam, and we're going to ask him about the stories that we never heard about in Bukhari and Muslim and Tirmidhi and Ibn Majah Abi Dawud, the books of hadith. We just never knew. We just never knew. We're going to learn about those stories, inshallah ta'ala, one day. Now, in these ayat, Allah is going to talk to us about what it means for someone what gifts Allah has given them, this mind, this heart, two gifts, the mind and the heart, how this person uses them properly and comes to the realization that in fact there is a God, and that in fact there is a judgment day, and then that in fact they do need guidance from Allah. These three conclusions, I'll say them again: there is a God, there is judgment day, and there is a need for guidance. And Allah is going to describe in these ayat that is a conclusion a person will reach all on their own. They'll just figure this out all on their own. There's no revelation. Without any revelation, this is a person who's just thinking, and they reach this conclusion. Allah says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. No doubt about it, especially when it comes to the creation of the skies and the earth, and especially when it comes to the fight and the conflict that takes place every day between the night and the day. What is the conflict between night and day? Day is bright, and as the day progresses, darkness starts winning over. Night starts winning little by little by little. The day starts getting a little from bright white, from bright yellow to orange, and then to darker tinges of orange. Then it starts turning blue, and then it starts turning darker blue, and then night finally wins. وَاللَّيْلِ ذَا اتَّسَقَ وَمَا وَسَقَ. When the night just becomes completely black, and then that full black night starts losing the battle again, and what happens? It starts getting lighter and lighter and lighter until day starts winning again. And this battle keeps happening every single day between night and day, night and day, night and day. This battle, Allah says, especially when it comes to the creation of the skies and the earth, and especially when it comes to the battle between night and day. In these two things, there are many, many miraculous ayat. Ayat, I'm not going to translate ayat yet. For people who have clean minds. You remember? You don't remember. I talked to the Urdu group about that. What are clean minds? Ulil albab, people who possess pure minds, sound minds. I call them clean minds. The classical definition of clean minds, I need you to understand. This is very important because if you don't understand the last part of this ayah, you won't understand the first part of this ayah. The last part of this ayah is who are ulul albab? Who are the people of pure minds, clean minds? And if you're not a person of clear mind, then the sky and the earth, the skies and the earth, and night and day are experienced by everyone or just you and me? Everyone, but they will not benefit from them. And they will see no ayat in them. Because what don't they have? Clear minds, clean minds. They say, like Imam Raghib says, الُّبُّ عَقْلٌ صَالِحٌ خَالِصٌ مِّنَ الشَّوَائِبِ, that a clear mind is actually a person whose thoughts are not polluted by useless things. A person whose thoughts are not polluted by useless things. A person who thinks about meaningful things. This brain that Allah gave us, this mind that Allah gave us, is actually a very powerful gift. It is extremely capable. You can memorize entire books. You can know incredible amounts of data. There are people, when they put their mind to something, they become incredibly knowledgeable in whatever area they put their mind to. Isn't it true that if you're tuning into like ESPN, there are commentators that can tell you sports statistics from 50 years ago? Off the top of their head? Off the top of their head. They know names of athletes, how long their careers were, which college they went to, who drafted them, where their career began, how many rings they have, when they suffered their injuries, when they came back. My God, that's incredible. They put their minds to it and they were able to learn enormous amounts of data. There are young kids, 12, 13, 14. They start playing an RPG. They start playing a first-person shooter or an RPG or some kind of sim game, or a fighting game, and they can tell you all the cheat codes, all the walkthroughs, all the special combos, X, X, Y, R1, R2 that make dua. Like they could tell you all of that. And do they read that, or could they just tell you? They could just tell you. If you see like any gamer conference, right? Like I'm a big Street Fighter fan. right? They have, at EVO they have the Street Fighter conference and the tournament. And you have these gamers that have unbelievable amounts of fighting combinations memorized. So if the guy jumps, here's the combination of buttons you're going to use. If he sits down, here's the combination you're going to use. It's it's a thing of wonder. Like how do they know so much? How do they memorize so much? Some of you are obsessed with video games, but you're terrible at them. So you spend a lot of time on YouTube walkthroughs. Whereas this one nerdy dude is like, well, this level is actually pretty easy. You just gotta, and you're like, oh, wait, pause. What do you do? What do you do? Oh, that's where you find the secret orb. There are people who become obsessed with television shows. They know every character, their character name, and their actor name, their actual name. They know their career. They don't have to go to IMDb or something to look up the information on that actor. They know everything already. Everything. How many awards, how many Oscars, how many nominations, how many this, how many that. It's ridiculous how much they know. There are people that are obsessed with fashion. There are people that are obsessed with sports. There are people that are obsessed, some people obsessed with news. Some people obsessed with technology. Which chip just came out? Which processor just came out? Which PC just came out? Some people obsessed with a particular company like Apple. They're just obsessed with it. Or Samsung. They know every product, when it's coming out, what the releases are, what the updates are, what the bugs are, what the fixes are, how do you jailbreak it, how do you do this, how do you do that? The whole nine. Aren't there people like that? This mind is an incredible thing. When you put your mind to something, you could just do amazing things. I knew this one kid I knew in Long Island, don't ask. Not gonna name him. He got in a lot of trouble actually. He used to say, hey, just give me your PS3, I'll jailbreak it for you and download 1,000 games on it. Yeah, and I'll just charge you $300. He got arrested. And he was like 14. He made a lot of money. The entire neighborhood's kids' PS3s had 1,000 games on them, on their hard drive. He's super smart, but he put his talents to evil genius, and it's what he used his mind for, So Allah is now telling us that there are people who think about all this, and then there are a few people in the world, few people in the world that have pure minds, that instead of getting distracted with one thing and then taking this incredibly powerful mind and putting all of its muscle in this some useless thing like sports statistics or video game data or movies or TV shows or series or episodes or whatever else, instead of putting their mind on that, they put their mind and they actually think about what you and I would never even consider. They stop and think about what? The skies and the earth and how they were actually created. And they start thinking about how there's an actual conflict between night and day. What? Who thinks about the sky? You ask your friend and you are going on a road trip, what you thinking about? The sky? You're weird. You are weird. I am no longer having a conversation with you. You're saying this in your head, like this is going to be a long road trip. This person is thinking about the sky. One of your friends just says on an airplane, on a flight, have you just ever thought about how day turns into night? Let's put the headphones back on, play. If your friend talked to you about, have you ever thought about whether or not they'll ever get off the island? You'd be like, yes, I have thought about that a lot, actually. What if there is no island? And you'll have a deep conversation. Because we have become accustomed to exhausting our minds into useful or useless things. Useless things. So in the course of this first ayah's conversation, I want to share with you what happens when someone actually thinks about the skies and the earth. What does that even mean? What happens when someone thinks about the night and the day? Allah says, for example, in the Quran about the sky. One of the things when you notice about the sky is wind. Right? When you go out in the open sky, you'll experience wind. Winds are a means by which clouds travel. Winds are also a means by which dust travels. Winds are also a means by which pollen travels. Clouds bring what? Rain. Pollen is what germinates the earth, and what comes as a result? Plants come as a result. And these plants need water. And the water comes from the clouds, and the clouds are delivered by the wind. So the breeze that you're feeling is actually a delivery system for life on this planet. Like life is supported, one of the ways that it's supported is just the breeze that you're feeling. Without the breeze, you actually wouldn't be able to experience life. Because the plants that need to receive the pollen wouldn't. Which means plants wouldn't come out. Which means animals wouldn't have something to eat. And if the clouds didn't come, even if the plants got germinated, there's nothing that can allow them to grow. Because there's simply not enough water to garden all of that. You know, we mow our lawns and we water our lawns, especially in Texas, because it's really, dry and stuff. But look outside and look at how far and wide the grass goes. Who's watering that grass? Well, that's being delivered. That's not us. That's just being delivered. And then these plants, especially these trees, they're being watered, and these trees inhale carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen, which you and I are breathing. And all of this is because of the wind. All of this. That's something someone can seriously think about and just be lost in wonder. How is everything working with everything else? It seems as though the winds have this very cooperative relationship with the clouds and pollen, and the sky that rains has a pretty cooperative relationship with the earth. They're working together to produce life. Because if, you have companies and organizations and people that kind of work on their own. They don't feel the need to work with each other. But if you look around, it seems as though all creation, in one way or another, is actually working with each other, and it produces a higher purpose. You start thinking about the night and day. Does night have a purpose? Does day have a purpose? Does night have, do we need night? Do we need day? Yeah. Are there places where the days last 6 months? And night lasts 6 months. And those places have special kinds of problems. They have special kinds of not just biological problems, they have special kinds of psychological problems, emotional problems. You start thinking about sunlight. There is now research about places that don't get a lot of sunlight and the higher rates of suicide and depression in those places. Sunlight has to do with your emotional state. Whoa. There are, so when you start thinking about the sky and you start thinking about the earth, you realize that actually you personally have a relationship with the sky and the earth. You personally have a relationship with night and day. You are not independent of these things, you are dependent on them. And in some way or the other, now think about this a little further. Human beings are the dominant species on this planet. Is that not true? We are the dominant species on this planet. Pretty much all the other species, everything else, in some way or the other, is being utilized by who? By us. The resources of the earth are being utilized by us. We're drilling for oil and gas or for minerals. The animals of this earth, we're either milking them or eating them or using their hide. The plants on this earth, we are using them to draw all kinds of chemicals and nutrients or even barks of tree being used for our construction. The stones of this earth are being used for our construction or for other matters. Even the silicone of this earth is being used for our technologies. The metals of this earth are providing us electricity and copper and all this other stuff. Pretty much everything on this earth, in one way or the other, we figured out how to use it to serve who? Ourselves. But the fact that we learned how to use it to serve ourselves makes you wonder, did I actually invent copper? I may have invented copper fiber, but did I invent copper? I may have invented a table, but did I invent wood? Everything that I needed to advance whatever advancements I as a human being made, any advancements I made, the raw materials for it were already here, weren't they? You know, a kid can take credit for building an amazing Legos thingy. But what can't he take credit for? The pieces. You were provided certain pieces to work with. Who provided those pieces? And how come these pieces fit so well together? You see the masterpiece of Legos, it's not just the genius of the child who put it together, but it's actually the genius of the designer who designed these pieces that can work so well with each other and build something, isn't it? When you start thinking like that, then you start developing a different kind of appreciation for your maker. And this kind of thinking makes you realize that everything is valuable. Now let me tell you what ayah means, so we can conclude this discussion. What does ayah mean? Ayah means lots of things. Ayah includes the meanings of something valuable. خَرَجَ الْقَوْمُ بِآيَتِهِمْ. Ayah is something valuable. Ayah is something that has purpose and meaning. This is why the word in Arabic, literally means I-E, meaning. Comes from the same origin. Ay in Arabic means, it's the same origin as ayah, actually means something that separates or distinguishes from something else, meaning every ayah is distinct. Every ayah has meaning and every ayah has value. The word ayah also means, among its other meanings, is a sign. A sign is something that points to something else. The wind is a sign that life is being delivered. Life is being delivered is a sign that I'm being taken care of. My life is being taken care of. Which is a sign that I am actually not my own caretaker. Somebody's providing for me. One sign leads to another sign, leads to another sign. Something is pointing to something, which is pointing to something else, which is pointing to something else. That's part of the meaning of ayah. It's part of the meaning of ayah. We'll have a full discussion on ayah later on. But I wanted to just share a couple of these things with you. Why? Because Allah is saying in the skies and the earth, and in night and day especially, there are ayat. There's something valuable. There's something meaningful. There's some kind of a lesson. There's some kind of a reminder. There's some kind of an indication. There's some kind of a clue. For what kind of people? For people of clear minds. But if people's minds are filled with sports statistics and junk and trivia information and just useless facts, if they're just filled with that, they're not going to see it. They're not going to see the bigger picture. They're going to be lost in the little details and not going to appreciate what's happening. Last comment, and you got your break. There's someone who is obsessed with this paper. It's a pretty shiny paper. Oh, there's some red here, there's some pink here, some black here. They're focused on what? Paper. Does this paper have something written on it? Does this paper have something written on it? It does? And what was written on it, does it have value? It does. Am I focused on the wrong thing when I say the paper, the shine, the ink? Am I focused on the wrong thing? Is there something far more important I should have been focused on? That's the difference between people who can appreciate an ayah and people who can't appreciate an ayah. They're looking at the same thing, but they're focused on the wrong thing. They don't see what it's actually saying. They know so much about it. There's a guy who studies paper who can hold the Quran and say, this comes from a particular kind of tree, and it's this density. And these are the kinds of factories that make it. I can tell this is this many years old. He can tell me so much about this paper. But is that knowledge of paper, which is cool knowledge, by the way. Hey, it's cool knowledge. It's probably on NPR one day. The paper guy. Right? But does that help him actually get anything out of this actual page of guidance? No. People are like that. There are people who don't have clean minds. They have amazing minds. It took a lot of knowledge to understand paper. But you focused on the wrong thing. The people of clean minds, they're not just smart. They just learn to focus on the right thing. That's the key to the whole discussion. They're going to focus on the right thing. You're going to meet a lot of smart people in life. In college, you're going to meet a lot of smart people. Your professors are going to be very smart people. The problem won't be that they're not smart. The problem will be they're focused on the wrong thing. And if you hang out with those kinds of people long enough, guess what happens to you? You start focusing on the wrong thing. And you get used to focusing on the wrong thing so much that when you actually talk to someone who's focused on the right thing, it just feels weird. It just feels out of place. Like the friend of yours who says, I was thinking about the sky. Just twisted. Why aren't you thinking about a movie? Why aren't you thinking about food? Why are you thinking about the sky? So we're going to do this passage and we're going to try to understand what does it mean to become people of Lub. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.